Hello, everybody. All right, so first piece of news, and I know I'll probably have to repeat this later when more people show up, of course. So Rick Piper messaged me earlier saying he wasn't going to be able to make it tonight. I don't know the circumstances, but so unfortunately, Rick will not be joining us tonight. Hoping that some of the guys will at least try to drop by and get in on the conversation here. So as always, of course, if you guys can like and share the screen, see if we can get some more friendly people involved in the conversation. Also, if anything we talk about tonight, grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. We'll try to answer the questions to the best of our ability. With that being said, of course, let's see, what can I start off with? So earlier today, I was watching through one of the apps on my TV here. Cartoon Lane. I was watching Gulliver's Travels from 1939. It was, of course, one of two what they would call full-length animated features from Paramount. Paramount Pictures was the studio that distributed like a lot of the Fleischer and famous studio stuff of the Golden Age, stuff like Popeye, Betty Boop, the Superman shorts of the from 41 to 43 and later, the novel tunes / Harvey Tune stuff, which was like Casper the Friendly Ghost, Little Audrey. But I was watching that and just I've been watching a lot of the Golden Age animation, and it's it's all pretty fascinating when you look at it because it just how much detail. And I know, and I also read this a lot from the trivia section on IMDb. With a lot of these cartoons, how much care and detail the artists back then, really, put to their work. Animators like Isidore Sparber, for one. I don't know all the animators. I know more of the voice actor's name, but So of course, in that Gulliver's Travel, of course, that was of course, an adaptation of the book, the same name. And some interesting stuff, when you look back at it. I mean, they've had and there have been a number of mini features they've done as well, like Portion, the Betty Boop mini feature, Portion. What I call a mini feature is anything that's like right around 10 minutes. Full length feature could be anywhere from a half hour on, I guess, or even some of the Popeye features like Popeye meets Sinbad the Sailor and Popeye's Aladdin and and the Wonderful Lamp. So that stuff can be, and, it's like the way the animators were, particularly in the Golden Age, it can make you feel like you're there, right? It's because there was just so much detail, even especially when you're talking about the 40s and into the early 50s, during World War II, and then even after the war, post-war, with the baby boom and the I've seen a number of particularly of MGM cartoons in particular where they really did nail down a lot of the details on the modern homes of that time period. So that was some pretty cool stuff. And as I said, first off, if you can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to gauge. Also, if anything I mention or talk about grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will go ahead and answer them. So, anyways, one of the other interesting things I was thinking about was one thing I guess it was always something that could have been known to everybody, but it's just something that just kind of caught my attention more recently. How, particularly in the golden age, right now, Warner Brothers, back then, Warner Brothers, MGM, and Disney all had their own animation studios. Warner Brothers, of course, they gave us, Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies. Now, granted, most of us know of like Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, Elmer Fudd, Yosemite Sam, Foghorn Leghorn, Speedy Gonzales, Sylvester and Tweety, Granny, all those characters. But even before, back when Leon Schlesinger was still producing for them in the 30s and into the early 40s, even before Bugs Bunny, they had a character called Bosco, who was their main character throughout the 30s. It was Bosco and Porky who were the front forerunners to the rest of the Looney Tunes characters. Bugs would, of course, start coming around in the early 40s there, along with Elmer Fudd and Daffy Duck, and even it's funny because Tweety, in some of his early, I think in his first 2 or 3 cartoons, some of the censors had an issue with him because initially, when the way they drew Tweety, they just pretty much just drew him with just skin, like no feathers. He was pink, like Tweety, or that was one of the cartoons, I believe. And seeing his little beak go boom was kind of Mel Blanc, of course, doing a lot of the great voices of theirs. The MGM, of course, they had Happy Harmonies originally in the late 30s into the early 40s, which was kind of a shot back at Disney for their Silly Symphonies series. Early days of MGM Studios, of course, Harmon and Ising, really doing their part to get things going. And then along with Happy, eventually, of course, we started getting Barney Bear, Droopy, Tom and Jerry. Now, granted, this is not the first, cartoon duo named Tom and Jerry. This probably the most famous. MGM's Tom and Jerry was Tom Cat and Jerry Mouse. But prior to that, Van Buren Studios, which operated a lot throughout the 20s into the early 30s, gave us a human duo called Tom and Jerry as well. So, So, anyways, we're waiting on more people to come in. As I said, feel free to anything. And thank you for the like and the share. That helps. As I said, if anything grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. We're still waiting on people to show up here. Also, of course, and then of course there's Disney with, of course, Silly Symphonies, Mickey and Minnie Mouse, Donald and Daisy Duck, Pluto, Goofy, Winnie the Pooh, Winnie the Pooh and Tigger too. So a lot, and a lot of the characters that came out of them. Now, of course, some of the other studios like Paramount, they may not have had their own. They may not have had their own like on studio or on studio cartoon style or animation studio. But what they would do back then is they would Hail Xenu and hey JR, Hail Xenu and Xena are only true comic book saviors. Yep. So, anyways, as I'm talking a bit about cartoon studio. Many of them would subcontract out to to cartoon animation studios. For example, Paramount contracted Fleischer and later Famous Studios, as I was saying earlier, and of course gave us Betty Boop, Popeye the Sailor, the Superman shorts. Eventually, when Fleischer went bankrupt in '42, Famous Studios took over. You'd also add the novel tunes / Harvey tunes, which was like Casper the Friendly Ghost, Little Audrey, Baby Huey, Herman and Catnip, Buzzy Crow, Modern Madcaps, Mohair and Tommy Tortoise, Little Lulu. So a lot of those characters came from Paramount, through Fleischer Famous Studios. Columbia would contract out to Charles Mintz, who I believe his main character claim to fame was Crazy Cat. And then Universal, they would contract Walter Lantz Productions, which of course originally Walter Lantz gave us Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, and then later, of course, Woody Woodpecker, Andy Panda, Chilly Willy, Maggie and Sam, Ma and Pa Kettle, and the Berries. And then 20th Century Fox would give us would subcontract out to Paul Terry and his Terry Tunes, which of course were the Terry Tunes were like Mighty Mouse, Heckle and Jekyll, and Van Buren Studios back in the 20s. I think one of the other characters they gave us was Felix the Cat. So some good stuff there, coming out of the golden age in terms of animation. So anyways, and I sound just still, and I know you just got here, JR, and in case you're wondering, Rick's not going to be here tonight. He messaged me earlier. And we finally do have another person to talk. Hey, Metal.
Howdy.
Rick messaged me earlier saying he wasn't going to be able to be on, so I was just, I don't know if you kind of heard me talking there before you came in, listening, as I was talking about some of the, the golden age of animation and how, a lot of them were contracting out to, a lot of the big studios like Paramount and Columbia were contracting out to smaller animation studios. Like in Paramount's case, it was Fleischer Famous Studios. Universal was Walter Lantz and all that. So didn't know if you were listening to all that or heard any of that or not. But
oh, I heard it.
Any thoughts on all that?
No.
You okay, or are you just kind of low on energy tonight?
Low on mental energy. I've been working all day.
Ooh.
Mostly doing editing work, and it is, I don't know, like I could do creative work all day and not be low on mental energy, but when I go to edit somebody else's work, especially if there's like a lot of issues with it, I'm just drained.
Well, you're here now, so if you like, you want to do an intro, share any links, plug anything you may be, any projects you're doing or anything of that sort.
Let me think. I could plug probably the same thing I've just been dropping because I want people to buy it. But hey, I'm the Metal. I sometimes make comics. I have to emphasize the sometimes part. Here's one I made. It was Realms and Relics. It's manga style. You can pick it up for like less than $4 before shipping. It's fun. It's like nearly 50 pages. And it's a action adventure of thieves or treasure hunters jumping through different realms in space. And they have to avoid gods and stuff because they're just normal people and they can't fight a god.
And of course, here's the link here for you guys to check it out if you want to do that. Did you want to plug your channel at all, or?
No, I'm good.
All right. All right. So, yeah. So, anyways, I was just, as I said, I was just, as I was waiting for you, or at least, and I'm giving you permission if you want to send the StreamYard link to Marsulo Gamer if he wants to join in the conversation as well. You can go ahead and send him the link if he's available.
And I have a hard enough time getting him to go onto the show that he agrees to regularly be on.
Well, try anyways.
A lot of times he ends up like even almost sleeping up until the moment of it. I have to like spam his phone, like texting him like, hey, you know what time it is, right?
All right. Well, I just thought if we wanted to join in the conversation here. Do you have you watched any like classic cartoons in a while, or is there any like memories
In
you
a
have?
while? I don't think so.
Not
I
really
used to watch it pretty
huh?
frequently, but not lately.
All right. Yeah, just figured I'd try to finish out that conversation. Actually, I'm glad you're here this week because there was something I wanted to bring up if you had come on last week. Knowing that you're kind of more, you're from the video game and anime side of things. And I'm sure and I know you know a lot of the dub voice
Was
actors.
it the Tara Strong stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you did I mention that to you already, or did you just hear about it?
I might have heard you say her name as I was closing the stream out because like I only had time to hop in to let you know I wasn't coming on.
Okay.
But I do know about the situation. I think I knew about it before you mentioned it.
Well, yeah, because I saw coverage from Hero Hey a couple weeks ago on it, where I guess apparently, so with the whole thing going on in the Middle East right now, Israel.
Oh yeah, no, I saw what was happening to her live on Twitter unfold before my eyes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I heard about it through Hero Hey that how apparently now that I guess now she's getting some of the same treatment, I guess, that she was helping to dish out to Trump and his supporters. That was kind of the ironic thing about it. Is like, from what I understand, of course, because I'm not on Twitter, I'm not on X, so I don't sit there and really go through all that junk. But from what I understand, I guess she was another one of those who was suffering from TDS and was like all over Trump, calling him an Islamophobe and all that. And
oh yeah, no, she is remarkably she's good to fans, like how a lot of people are just in general good to fans, but widely she's kind of known as a snooty or snotty person. There was like a big thing that happened with her, let's say 4 years ago, where she was like in a Uber and the driver had mentioned something, and she and her other like actress friend that were in the back seat were going off on this driver who was like Polynesian or something too, and that was a really funny situation given her.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there was
normal...
some kind of communication breakdown there, particularly the pretty heavy accent too.
Oh no, he sounded. I mean, he was probably born here. He's of Polynesian like descent or something, but you wouldn't be able to tell from the audio recording that he wasn't anything other than any other American you've met in your life, right?
Story sounds familiar.
But that was several years ago. She's always been in heat with stuff like that.
Well, is that the one where the guy, it was an Uber and she said
it was the Uber situation.
The continent of Hawaii when she meant an island. It made herself sound really stupid.
She said a lot of things in that conversation that made herself sound stupid.
Yeah. If only it was legal to pull the car over and just slap the Jesus out of her.
Well, that's not really the way to solve most problems, but
Some people are
some
just.
people talk the way they do because they've never been hit in their life.
I'm just saying, some people are so stupid they need some sense slapped into them.
Yeah.
So Tim, what you're saying is that that what you're saying is that Tara and her actress friend, as Metal put it, probably need a good slap upside the head. Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Yes, I am. It's because sometimes it's the only way. To quote the Lady Killers movie.
All right. Well, Tim, you're here now. So before we continue on with the conversation here in regards to Tara Strong, you want to do an intro? Maybe share some links on any projects you're doing, anything like that, or?
Well, I mean, Melvin 3. Melvin 3 has like what 3 days left.
All right. Well, you can always share the link anyways and see if anything helps, right?
But it's practically over. So if anybody is interested in getting a book before it's too late, back Melvin 3.
All right. So we'll go back to talking about Tara Strong. So yeah, and of course I wanted to bring this up with you here, Middle, because I know, as I said, you're kind of a little like me. You're a little more familiar with the kind of the anime, video game, voice acting.
Yeah. Well, and luckily I happen to be precisely familiar with the situation you're talking about. Well, basically what happened, she's the type of Hollywood celeb, even though she's more voice acting than anything, but she's in that circle of people that has kind of curtailed a fan base that would easily turn on you. It's like in The Lion King when Scar had the hyenas working on him, and then when he got dropped down to them at the end, they all jump on him. It's like, of course, that was always going to happen. It's the type of people you're with, right? And because she is Jewish herself, because Tara Strong is a Jewish woman, and took the Israel side, as you would if you were in that situation, she basically not only did her fans turn on her, her contracts turned on her too. So she was helping promote a animation called Boxtown, right? Which a lot of voice actors are doing this now. They're getting into these like indie animations, these like online pilots that'll be on YouTube and stuff. Because if you help produce and promote shows like this, you actually get more money back in return when they're successful than if you're just hired by a studio. We saw this with Richard Horvitz in Hell of a Boss.
Probably get producer credit. You're not just coming in as an actor or actress. You're coming
so
in
would
as a
this
producer
be
as well.
Would this be karma?
Yes, it's going to be karma.
So
when I finish,
let me. Because as you remember, she was threatening to put this video on Gawkers or something, and threatening to get this Uber driver fired.
Oh yeah. And that's not the only thing she's done in years. Yeah. So she was helping promote. You could even argue that the only reason Boxtown was successful is because it had a big name like Tara Strong on the project for the Kickstarter. And then on October 12th, the official Twitter profile for the animation project puts up a tweet that says, "Hello all. Just wanted to offer a quick update on Boxtown. We will be recasting the role of Bill, previously played by Tara Strong, and we'll have more info soon on open auditions." In which she replied, "Just found out on Twitter," because they did not tell her before the announcement that she was being recasted. And she found out that she got fired basically for being Jewish.
Well, yeah, it's kind of funny. Some of these hardcore liberals in Hollywood,
they eat their own.
Jewish are now kind of this is one of the points that Harold Hay was making when he was covering this, was that there are some people out there who believe that Tara, like a lot of people of her ilk, are basically getting exactly what they deserve for how they handled or how they treated people like Trump and his supporters, because basically she did the same thing to Trump and his people. It's kind of funny because one of the things that I'm kind of reminded of, right, this situation now going on was, and I did look it up earlier. Um, it was, I guess, I think it's called First They Came. It was kind of a lyrical. Let me pull it up here.
Yeah, it's the one where it's like first they came for blank, and I did not stand up, and it continues several times until then it came with me, and there was nobody to stand up.
Right. I often have paraphrased it, and it's kind of like So the text of it here. Let me go ahead and pull up what I'm seeing here. Just pulled it up right here, and this is kind of a situation that Tara and many of the Jewish actors and actresses, hardcore libs, are dealing with right now. This is this kind of situation it reminds me of. Now, I often have like kind of paraphrased it, quote. I guess this is a poetic form of a 1946 post-war confessional prose by the German Lutheran pastor Martin Niemöller, 1892. It is about the silence of German intellectuals and clergy, including, by his own admission, Niemöller himself, following the Nazis' rise to power and subsequent incremental purging of their chosen targets, group after group. So, this situation that Tara's in and many people around her are in reminds me of this thing, and I'll just read it up. So here's a shorter form that you can find at the United States Holocaust Museum. First, it came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionist, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. And then there's a slightly longer version that goes something like this. First, they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionist, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. And they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Now, Grant, I know he's talking more about speaking up and speaking out. It might not be exactly the same, but one of the other aspects of all that,
Well,
too,
it's also being translated from German. This form of like speak out and stuff. It basically just means to put yourself in between.
Yeah. But another aspect of this that reason why it reminds me of this particular prose is because a lot of times this stuff will come back on you. It's like if you're speaking out against other people and you're like basically like again Tara Strong along with a number of the Jewish hardcore liberals were sitting there dumping on Trump and his supporters.
Well, here's another thought. Go ahead. Sorry. Here's another thought. They can't call people Nazis when they're doing exactly what Nazis do, which is condemn Jewish people.
Yeah. It's like, and I know one of the things that Hiro Hay and a few other commentators are pointing out in Tara Strong's situation too, is that a lot of the people she surrounds herself with, a lot of people she draws in, because I think you said it too. They're metal. A lot of her own fans have turned on her.
Oh yeah. But you know what? It's precisely because of that. But you're gonna go off camera for a second.
Yeah, to put on some more lights here. So I'll be right back.
But it's precisely because of the philosophy behind a poem like that, why, whether it's karma or deserved in some grand poetic sense, I'm actually on strong side about this because I don't care who somebody was prior to this. What I do care is how things are justfully served, and being somebody who helped promote all of this stuff and make the Kickstarter basically possible, kicking her off for any social reason is wrong, right? And we know a lot of people have been through that. And I'm not going to suddenly laugh at her or revel in it just because it's finally happening to her. Like, I don't really want this to happen to anyone.
Yeah, but f around and find out, or you reap what you sow, etc., etc.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm sure there are strong sentiments on both sides of that argument. You both make very good points there, and I think there's strong sentiment for Metal's position of, yeah, it's wrong to do this, whether no matter what side of the aisle you're on.
Yeah.
And then to Tim's point, it's also a valid reason, to kind of like say, hey, you kind of brought this on yourself, by acting this way towards others, and that
I had the
you can't exactly expect people to feel sorry for you when you engaged in the very same behavior against another group of people.
If anything, she should be like, "Oh, this is what it feels like. I shouldn't do that anymore."
And I wonder now that she's getting some of that treatment that she put on Trump. I doubt if this would actually happen, but I wonder if she'll come out and actually make a public apology, or at least give some kind of public acknowledgement that, yeah, maybe when I was doing this to Trump or his supporters or whatever, yeah, this wasn't cool when I was doing it to them. It's not cool to me now. But then, is that really true regret, or is that just remorse? Is that just?
Oh, absolutely would never happen though. Especially when you can pull the anti-Semitism card. They're just going to say it's apples and oranges.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because they're never wrong, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, kind of some of the things like Monica Rial pulled when the whole thing with Vic Mignogna was going down. It's kind of funny because earlier on in all that saga, when all that was going down initially, and when I first, started getting to know guys like that Umbrella Guy, Tug, and Yellow Flash and all that, I actually brought it to because I actually found this just looking at, because I was just trying to see what some of the other voice actors were saying, right? And so I came upon it. Now I'm sure you probably knew a little bit about this. Metal. Do you remember the voice actor by the name of Illic Guardiola?
The first name doesn't sound as familiar, but the last name does.
Okay, Illic Guardiola was a dub voice actor for ADV, ADV when they were still ADV, and he did a couple of, I think he did one or two roles for Funimation as well. I know he did. He has a pretty distinctive voice. He's of Honduran descent. Okay. Now the thing is, I think back in, I think it was 2014, I believe, when aside from voice acting, he was also a teacher at a high school, in their drama department, apparently. Okay. And one night, I guess back in 2014, he and his girlfriend at the time, who was 16 at the time, this was in Texas, mind you, were pulled over by the cops, and it came to light that him at the time, I think he was like a 41-year-old man and a 16-year-old girl were in a quote-unquote relationship. Okay. He was arrested, and before the trial could even get underway, he ended up, with the girl's mother's permission, mind you, marrying her, and therefore the case was dropped because the cops are not getting any kind of, we're not getting any cooperation from the mother and the girl. Now, as far as
Yeah.
I know, to this date, they're still married. She's, of course,
Texas law is kind of weird about that, right? So the age that a person themselves can consent is 17 in Texas. But under certain circumstances, because a lot of the older laws have never been revoked, if you have the parents' consent, I believe you could technically still get married as early as 14.
Mhm.
You would think they would kind of change those. They probably should. If any law should be changed, it's those.
Yeah, but the only reason I brought that up, well, one, that was probably one of the more things he was more well known for, aside from his voice acting. But also, the reason I bring this up is because as I was looking to see what some of the other voice actors and actresses, including Illich, I found a picture, or I found a post that's since been deleted, where it showed that he and Monica had once dated. She acknowledged having dated Illich Guardiola. Okay. And I brought this to there because this was at a time when everybody was present. Oh, Vic's a creep. Vic's a P word. Vic's this, Vic's that, and Monica was, of course, leading the charge. And nobody really said a whole lot about Illich's situation. It's like,
They never really proved anything that he did.
Oh, I know where I
either.
know him from now. He voiced the dad in Ghost Stories.
Yeah, he's got a pretty distinctive voice. He also, have you ever seen Le Chevalier d'Eon? He also voiced kind of the long-haired knight who accompanied, who was part of that
I have not.
Huh?
I have not.
Yeah, I think his name was Durant in that one, but yeah, but basically the whole point was, because nobody, when it went down, everybody was trying to let it go quietly, and then when of course, I brought it up and pointing out Monica's hypocrisy on it, because they didn't really raise a whole lot of fuss when when he was actually legitimately caught doing something that technically he may not have been supposed to be doing. Okay, he was actually caught. Whereas Vic has never really been caught. Vic has made some mistakes in how he's handled the situation. That, anybody can admit that, and just who Vic is, but it was kind of like that level of hypocrisy right there, being pointed out. And going back to what we were talking about with Tara Strong, just the fact is that, you wonder if after having the very behavior she engaged in, now having it directed at her, if she would actually sit there and have some kind of public, public acknowledgement that, oh yeah, she was wrong. And of course, Metal, you said, I would agree with you. She probably won't. A lot of these people wouldn't, even if, they'll always, even when they're caught, they'll sit there and they'll like try to dodge it. Like when it was brought to Monica's attention that we all found out she had dated Illich, she'll go, well, yeah, I dated him back in college. It doesn't matter. I dated him back in college. This and the next thing. It's like still you can jump down Vic's throat, but but yet you said nothing about Illich, who actually was caught. He was actually arrested.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing about cancel culture. They think about there's no such thing to these people as forgiveness, or that people change over time. But when they get caught doing something they shouldn't, then they're like, well, why should I get canceled?
Mm-hmm.
And it's always okay when it's someone else, but when it's them getting targeted by cancel culture, all of a sudden it's different.
Right. Oh yeah.
Like for instance, the girl that tried to cancel Metallica for quote unquote racist things, even though they were all the things that she accused them of were out of context and were like what 30 to 40 year old stuff.
Mm-hmm.
like one of her her evidence was that one of them did a goose step during a show, or there's a picture of them in Germany doing like a mock Nazi salute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But here's another thing about that too. Something you said there should obvious a mock. So
Yeah,
if they were doing it mockingly, like they were basically, it's funny because.
Well, they were alcoholics too, so.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing something in a way that you're doing something in a way where you're acknowledging that it's wrong and you're actually making fun of it because it's wrong and stupid, then you shouldn't be canceled. First off, you shouldn't be canceled for that, because even if you are, making some of the certain salutes, doesn't necessarily mean that you're like doing it. You're not doing it. You're doing it in support. It doesn't mean you're doing it in support.
I think the main point is
you're doing it to make fun of the behavior practice, because
yes,
in your own opinion, it's a stupid and moronic practice.
Well, the fact that they were younger, they were drunks and they were just being stupid. I think most of them are mature, wiser. I think they're mostly family guys now.
Yeah.
Should they be made as responsible for what they did, 30, 40 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Hell, I don't think they even remember half that shit.
More than likely.
The best part is that the same girl said that they were a bunch of old white guys, when Kirk Hammett is like half Filipino, and their new bass player of the past 8 years is like Mexican and some kind of native.
Yeah, but the thing is, is she saying that they're now a bunch of old white guys?
Yeah, she said that a year ago.
Oh, okay.
She did like one TikTok video where she was trying to say that they're problematic because they're racist.
Yeah, it's like,
yeah, but you have to understand the new mindset, though, right?
Stupid to begin with.
Wait, you have to understand the new mindset. There's people who are ethnically white, and then there's people who are politically white,
which makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. But it does if you get into their weird mental gymnastics, right? Like if you have to look through the distorted lens that they see the world through, you can understand the stupid thing that they mean.
Mm-hmm. Is it really worth to put that much effort into, though? To really?
Well, it can be if you're trying to argue with somebody, right? Because if you want to argue with somebody, to tear apart their arguments, you have to try to see their argument from their perspective.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. You have to understand their reasoning. You have to understand. You have to have some basic understanding of their even their reasoning. Just so wrong.
You can't reason with these people, though. Don't even try. You can't. Like I for at least a day, I argued with this dude about why I think AI art is theft, and he's making excuses for this one guy. Because he drew something very crudely, and then he used AI art program to make it better. And I use art with quotations around it. But I kept saying, no, well, AI art programs steal from actual art actual art pieces. You're letting a computer do the rest of the work, so it's not really something you did. It's something you let a computer finish for you. Mm-hmm. And so he's making all kinds of excuses for it. I'm like, you could spend all day arguing with these people, but then you look stupid for arguing with them.
Yeah, it's because you're twisting in the wind with them, and it's like not even really worth the time and effort, right?
Yeah. And I will take it to the grave with me. And I think AI art is stupid. It takes no talent, and it's theft.
I agree with 90% of what you said.
Oh, good. Yeah, I mean, at least you agree with most of what I said.
Yeah, it's actually the theft part is the part I disagree with, because that is mechanically not how it works. But it is stupid. It takes no talent, and honestly, it's not even art.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
by definition, because art's a discipline.
There's been claims that some pieces AI art has had pieces of like other people's signatures on the. They put on the
was the earlier stuff. The current models that people are using don't work the same way that the earlier stuff does.
Well, I think if you didn't put any time in it or you didn't have any skill in it, then it's not art.
Same.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
So going back to the whole thing with Tara Strong here, so the big thing that really got her into trouble with all this too is apparently she liked a particular, and you probably know this because you said you were following it on Twitter and X and all that metal. So apparently she liked a tweet without reading the full tweet. Apparently, so I guess it started off with something like Hamas equals ISIS. That's how it started, and then I guess after reading that, she liked it, and then equals Taliban equals, it goes off, and then basically just pointing out, again, it was a tweet about how, how Muslims were supposedly terrorists or whatever. She only read like the first part of it and then liked it, and that's what got people, because it made her basically what it made it seem like is she was saying that Muslims were all terrorists. And it looks like JR's got something to say here. That's what he's got to say here. That's like saying a car isn't a car because robots built it.
No, it's not like saying that.
About with
Yeah. Mostly because it is if you have this really extremely modern, and I mean only within the last decade or so, view of the word art, which I guess has completely changed. And if you're using it that way, then sure. But art doesn't mean imagery. It doesn't mean like a painting or anything. You can use the word graphic for that or anything. Art, for all of history, meant discipline. That's why you have like the liberal arts or the martial arts or anything. Our art is equivalent to discipline in that regard. It doesn't necessarily just mean like an image that somebody made.
Yeah.
The funny thing with Tara too, and I think she lives in here in California, in Hollywood somewhere, but she's actually originally Canadian. I think actually one of her first voice credits supposedly was as Ileana in the X-Men the animated series back in the 90s. I think that was actually one of her first actual voice credits from some of the sources I've seen. But but
and a car is a completely different thing than a comic book or a drawing or a painting.
Yes, but you could argue that because a comic book has a very specific definition to it, that if AI made a comic book, it would still be a comic book. It just wouldn't be art.
Right.
But yeah, this whole terror situation. Like I said, I'm apathetic towards it, but I still lean on the side of justice, regardless. Right? Like I'm not going to revel in it. I'm also not going to fault people who do. Right? Like if you want to revel in it, that's perfectly fine. I'm just choosing to not have an emotional stake at it, and leaning like this is the way this situation should play out, even if she's been on the other side of it in the past.
I mean, how can you? You don't really know her personally.
Yeah, but I mean, people become parasocial positively or negatively on the internet, right? Like she has fans who actually flipped from a positive parasocial to a very negative one quickly, but she also has antagonists or opposers because of things she's done in the past, which is a form of parasocial relationship with somebody, just a negative one.
Yeah, I guess the lesson here is
one. It sounds like.
I guess the lesson here is fully read a tweet before you like it or whatever.
Yeah,
or just don't care what people like. But try telling that to the Twitter mob, right?
Yes, I know. With their virtual pitches and torches.
Yeah.
Pitchforks and torches, I mean.
Yeah. Anything more on that? Because as I said, I know you were following, I guess, some of the tweets. Anything more on that? Like, I take, is she still getting a lot of heavy hate or heavy antagonism?
like it's not as charged, but there's still like people on the daily depending on what she does. I know, like with her initial response tweet when she was replying to it, she's been using the hashtag and liking a lot of things with the hashtag pray for peace a lot, so that's been causing some problems for her. But aside from that, I think we covered everything that's important.
Yeah.
Well, did I ever tell you my best response to somebody who was talking about I think it was like a post that was anti-Israel, and they said, well, the Israel shouldn't do this and this and this, and I go, well, then maybe Hamas shouldn't be launching rockets into Israel. Just saying.
Well, the issues between the Jews and the Muslims goes back thousands of years.
Oh, it's never going to be resolved.
Yeah, because it goes all the way back to Abraham, Isaac, and Ishmael. It goes back to Isaac and Ishmael. It goes back to Ishmael and his mother being sent away because of Isaac and Sarah. And there's probably kind of an inbred resentment by the Muslims towards the Jews because of that.
Well, that's specifically the Palestinian plight, right? Because if you look at the broader Muslim growth, they came out of Christian before that Jewish culture, right? There are other reasons in the Quran for disliking Jews as well, but this is more than just a Jewish Muslim problem. This is specifically the Palestinian people, which is a very, very complicated situation that a lot of people pretend they know better than they actually do. And I try not to get too deep into it because I just, I don't like the bloodshed on either side if it was avoidable, but it clearly isn't.
Yeah, no,
but this is Middle Eastern politics that doesn't even operate in the same way that we look at war and politics over here. Like they're not philosophically and principally, they're not looking at it the same way.
No.
Anyways, before we continue on here, we have Kim Scout Menedy as what's your favorite Pompeii 79, which I have no idea what a Pompeii 79 is.
He's always asking random questions. I don't understand why these questions are coming from.
Well, this guy I think is more of an anime fan. But I've never heard of Pompeii. Have you, Metal?
Yes. It's a big part of history. It was the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, which destroyed the city of Pompeii.
Oh, okay. What if I thought it was like some kind of like anime
there was only one. So how can you? I mean, there's only one. So it's not like.
My favorite one is when they dug open that house and they found a family who didn't know what was going on, and they were completely petrified, still like cooking and having some meal. It could have been breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I don't remember what time of day that the eruption happened, but it's just like this quaint little preserved like snapshot of life in Pompeii because they didn't know the eruption was going on.
What about the guy that was killed choking his chicken?
That's not my favorite.
I thought that was that's
by far.
That's an embarrassing way to die, isn't it?
What was that? I don't think I caught that, Tim.
So somebody died in Pompeii playing tug of war with Cyclops.
Playing tug of war with a Cyclops?
Playing tug of war with Cyclops, if you get what I'm saying.
Jerking his gherkin.
Oh. Okay, I didn't get it.
But that's how he died, and that's how they found. That's how he died in Pompeii, and that's how they found his.
Yeah, it could have been like.
Probably be a very embarrassing way to pass on.
Yeah. It could have either been that he had no idea what was going on and he was just doing his normal business, or it could have been that he had seen the eruption coming and decided, if I can't avoid it, this is how I want to go out.
Let them see me doing my business.
I guess to get over the pain of being like burned or scorched alive, I guess at least find a way to activate certain endorphins that may.
Oh, no. So the thing about the eruption of Mount Vesuvius is that the plume before any lava really came through was so strong that it was almost just like instantaneous death for anybody who got caught in it. That's why there's so many like preserved like bodies. Like they almost look like sculptures of people in there.
Yeah. If I'm gonna,
So that's the snapshot he decided to leave.
it's like, okay, time to let them see everything. I tell you, if I was gonna die in Pompeii, it'd be just me standing with both fingers up. That way, he was flipping someone off when he died.
Actually, the way you were talking about that metal, it does kind of remind me of a scene from One Piece. I've watched during I guess the Punk Hazard arc, where you had a lot of the Navy members and some of the pirates who were like turned to like pillars or bodies, I guess, of ash or whatever it was. You probably know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
So right now, as I've been watching the One Piece anime, right now we're up in the Dressrosa arc. I'm at the point where Luffy is making it. Luffy, Viola, and Thunder Soldier Kiros, as the toy soldier, have all made it to just outside of Don Flamingo's office. Usopp is confronting Trouble and Sugar. They haven't actually put the Trabasco ball into his mouth yet, but that's about where we're at with all that. And at least in my watching of One Piece right now. Actually, Tim, I was just thinking about this earlier too. I know wanted to talk about something last week. Not that I still know a whole lot about it, but if you want to kind of lead the conversation in that, you still want to, the whole Mike and Mindy Wheeler, Niobe, whatever that whole thing was. If you want to lead the conversation on that. Well, Tim was mentioning last week. I guess he was suggesting that we look at how, I guess, guy. I think his real name is Larry, but Niobe.
I know Larry.
Yeah. Apparently, there was something.
What's Larry talking about this time?
Well, no. What I had mentioned was, I know last week you were wondering what his response to Mike and Mindy Wheeler were, or something like that. Thought maybe we could talk about that. If you want to tell us about a little bit more about all that.
I forgot what he said about it. It was I forgot what it was all about, really. I just kind of it was interesting for a brief second, then I kind of moved on from it.
Okay. All right. That type of stuff is not really stuff I'd be overly interested in either. It's like,
no, I mean, it's just like this Mike guy. He acts like he's a big shot, but he's nothing without his wife, really. Yeah. I mean, one time he's on Lorenzo's show, and he gave himself complete credit for. He says, "Yeah, I put up a book, and yeah, I made this so much money in so much time." And it's like, wait, don't you mean you and your wife? Yeah. But he just took complete credit for it. It's like, really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I have heard like he went after Fana before.
Yeah, he did. He does stupid shit like that.
Yeah. Sounds like Mike. Is it Mike Wheeler or Weber?
Wheeler.
Mike Wheeler. Sounds like Mike Wheeler is a piece of work, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a piece of work because he'd be nobody without his wife. Just saying.
Madeline, you know what we're talking about, or?
I'm gonna be honest. When Tim started talking, I took it as a opportunity to run into the other room and grab a hot dog. So I missed like the last minute or so of conversation.
Well, we were just simply talking about how apparently Mike Wheeler sits there and, he's kind of a piece of work, and he apparently takes credit for takes more credit than
He
his-
did.
his
He
due.
did on one occasion when he was on Lorenzo's stream where he said, "I put up our camp. I put up the campaign and I made this much money." And it's like, don't. And I thought to myself, don't you mean your wife? You and your wife, both you did.
Oh yeah, because they're a team. It's not like he doesn't contribute, but I would agree that she probably actually ends up doing more.
Well, he does all the writing, but it's just like, his stories wouldn't be anything without the amazing talent from his wife. I'm just
Oh
saying.
no, yeah, I agree. Like, I've even heard like the scripting. Like, people have talked about the scripting, where she even does a lot of the flavor of the scripting when she transposes it into art.
Why is his script kind of blah?
I don't know about that, but I've been told that she's like probably one of the only people that could translate it.
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So now I'm just trying to think of what else. I covered a bit of some cartoon history there in terms of the different studios. We talked a little bit about Tara Strong situation.
History.
We're just past an hour here. Actually, one of the other things that I was covering this week, I know we talked a bit about, of course, the Eric July court case last week. I don't know how much you guys know about this, but there's a penciler named Chris Wozniak, who I guess is now going to be pursuing a lawsuit against Warner Brothers in DC. And RJ, of course, was telling me about a little bit more about this. Well, I kind of knew a little bit about it.
Oh, DC's going to drag that out forever.
Yeah. Well, so supposedly Chris Wozniak put an idea for a series called The Batman for them, right? And they said they kind of rejected it and said, no, we don't want to, he submitted a script or something like that. They initially rejected it, but then later, a while later, they actually sold it to Warner Brothers to develop into a movie. And basically he didn't get either credit nor money from it.
Oh, yeah. I see. There's a change.org for this right now too, where they are claiming his script was stolen for The Batman, and they want him to get the credits and money that he deserves for it.
Yeah, that was basically and that's basically what the article had said too.
You know how long it took for like the creator and co-creator of Superman to get full credit for Superman? Long time.
Oh, yeah, it took like 50, 60 years. I mean, they didn't start crediting Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster a whole lot until like the 90s, I believe.
And how long did it take for Bill Finger to get his fair credit for Batman?
Just as long, if not longer.
Exactly. So this what's his name? Worcester?
Wozniak, I believe.
Wozniak.
Wozniak.
Almost like Steve Wozniak,
yeah.
Right? Like
Chris
Wozniak. It's a common last name, but I always remember Steve Wozniak was one of the two co-founders of Apple back in the day.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my bad. I don't know who that guy is, so I'm just like mispronouncing his name.
Yeah, but his one, he's going by Woz, which is also what Steve Wozniak used to go by, the Woz. But Chris here has his Twitter handle is Batman Gate, which is super funny when I read that.
Well, am I right though? Do you think it's gonna be like it's probably gonna be a few decades before he actually gets his due? I
don't know, because like a lot of that other stuff we're talking about that happened in the past was also before like the internet and social media was really a big thing. And these companies do sometimes actually feel pressure from crowds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
they could easily have the story buried if they flip certain web platforms enough money. I was a big company. That's probably what I would do.
Maybe, but they haven't yet because when I Googled his name, it was like the first 8 results on Google were about this exact thing that we're talking about.
Well, then, what the hell, DC? Do your thing. Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. So
He also seems to be pretty pro Comicsgate. Looking at his retweets and stuff.
Well, I bet you he wasn't until DC started screwing him over. He goes, well, I wasn't pro comics.
Or he might have been neutral. There's a lot of people that wanted to be pro, but they kind of had to stay silent for their jobs, right? So now he's just like vocal.
Yeah, all of a sudden he just feels stronger about it than he was before.
Yeah, like I don't like to think somebody flopped unless I had evidence that they were actively against it before. Because I understand that it is hard to maintain your job when the company is against a thing.
Right. Well, it's kind of like what happened in the Vic situation where, well, I had even asked once on a stream that he was on about that, and he said that privately, a lot of his fellow voice actors were actually supporting him. It's just that they couldn't come out publicly and say it because if they did, it would be a case where they'd basically get blackballed too. Now, Now, in Vic's case, though, I think he's still doing conventions. So I think that's still how he's making most of his money right now. Even though I've gone to his IMDb page before and seen that he does have a couple of newer credits like coming out this year. That he's done some work for, I guess, some British companies, British studios. But he's still doing his podcast on Twitch as well because I still get the notification.
Yeah, and I have heard the same for CG, where some of the former industry guys have said that there are people in the industry that are at least sympathetic towards CG, but they can't really speak out about it. Now, we've also seen people who suddenly ended up saying the same things recently that were actively berating CG, but I don't think everybody who comes out is like that. If you haven't seen them doing it in the past, there's obviously people who had to hold it in.
Yeah. Yeah. So, any other things? Any other news items? There were a couple of things that I was looking at, like the Wozniak story. The other thing that I was thinking of also going for tonight too. Let me find it here. Oh yeah, have you guys heard of a guy named Howard Chaykin?
Doesn't ring a bell.
I have heard the name. Isn't he a famous indie comic book creator or comic?
Well, yeah, I think he's a novelist. I did cover this the other day, so he I'll just pull it up here. Kind of go over this one here. So now this is more of a release type story. This isn't like anything like really too super common. So Howard Chaykin to adapt John Bentine's Fargo Hell on Wheels into graphic novel. Article by John F. Trent published back on the 18th. So illustrious comic book creator Howard Chaykin launched a crowdfunding campaign for a new graphic novel adaptation of John Bentine's Fargo Hell on Wheels. And then there's the cover of it. In a video promoting the crowdfunding campaign on Zoop, Michael Stratford, the founder and publisher of Gizmo Press, provided details about Chaykin's adaptation. Stratford stated, quote, "It's based on the classic paperback adventure series by John Bentine. Neil Fargo is a great character, sometimes described as an early 20th century American Conan, the Barbarian. He's tough, wry, fast with his fist, and deadly with his weapons arsenal. Unquote. Quote, Fargo is a taciturn soldier of fortune who's always looking for the next well-paying job. Next well-paying job, a feisty female wildcat, strong liquor, and a good fight, unquote, he added. He then detailed, quote, Fargo, Hell on Wheels, is a hardcover, full-color, 96-page graphic novel adaptation of the paperback of the same name, unquote. The book also includes an art gallery with art from Dave Johnson, Walter Simonson, Sadat Ozgen, Butch Guice, Robert Tenenbaum, Ron Garney, Dennis Cowan, of course, of Milestone and Static. I know I've seen his credits on. I remember seeing his credits on the Static cartoon back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Giancarlo Bernal, Mahmoud Assar, Dalibor Talchik, Dan Panosian, Cully Hamner, Philippe Xavier, Tim Fielder, Enrico Marini, Frank Cho, Jordi Bernet, Eduardo Riso, Lee Weeks, Gary Grank. An interesting name to have there, Gary Grank. Steve Epting, Doug Pagash, and more. Following Stratford's brief introduction to the character, Chaikin provided details about the story and his vision. Quote, I'm here to tell you all about Hell on Wheels by John Benty. I'm adapting it for a big comic book, not a graphic novel, to help with you guys. A big fat comic book that will be coming your way soon, unquote. Oh. So have you guys heard of the story or of any of the artists, any of the people involved here? There are a few that probably should sound familiar at least, but...
Oh, not really.
Frank,
I mean, the story sounds
Frank
cool.
shows he's known for a comic strip called Liberty Meadows, and he's the one of the guys that got fired from I don't know what company for drawing his women too sexy.
And who is that? Who is that, Tim?
Frank Cho.
Frank Cho. Okay, so, quote, Fargo Hell on Wheels is a classic representation of the kind of novel that existed in the late 60s and early 70s, and it's functionally vanished from the landscape. Unquote.
Wait. Is Frank Cho the one? Oh, what's that thing that they're always eating? He draws the women and they eat that one food and their butts always get bigger.
Yeah, I think he's been criticized for drawing women with really thick butts.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what it is. There's like a certain food that they always eat.
I just remember
I think I actually follow this guy on Twitter.
Anyway, Chaikin observed, quote, back when there was a generation of people who read on public transportation, instead, of course, of twiddling around with their phones and all that, and their devices. There were short, quick, compact reads. Adventure along the lines of, say, James Bond and Dan Pendleton's work and Richard Stark, Donald Westlake's work, early Elmore Leonard stuff. I'm guessing these guys are more novelist type of people. Quote, to a certain extent, Fargo could have been a character that was derived from Leonard's work. Had Leonard, instead of shifting from westerns to crime, had done something that's transitional, because Fargo, to a great extent, uses a western motif to do adventure crime fiction, and that's how the character plays, unquote, Chaikin added. You guys can see some of the artwork here. The official description for the story reads, quote, in Hell on Wheels, Fargo is hired to protect a small railroad under relentless attack from a corrupt and ruthless competitor with money to burn, and hired guns to do the burning. Fargo is a man ready for any challenge, and for the hard-boiled soldier of fortune, payback is fair game, unquote. It continues, quote, packed with fist-fighting brawls, gunplay, women, and whiskey, from running start to stunning finish. This story is a perfect example of why Neil Fargo is a timeless character in the timeless world of adventure fiction. Perfect for modern graphic novel. For the modern graphic novel, combine that with the unique creative sensibility of Howard Chaykin, no stranger to tough, smart protagonist, in parentheses here, with an eye for the ladies, in parentheses, and Fargo, Hell on Wheels, will be one of the most exciting independent graphic novels of the year, unquote.
I found it. What I was looking for. So apparently I follow Frank Cho. I just always forget his name. And I see his stuff on my Twitter timeline all the time. I just know him as the wheat cakes guy because one of his running gags is that he'll always say that like the women that he draws ate too many wheat cakes and it went straight to their rear.
I just remember that he did Liberty Meadows, and then he went off the newspaper, and then it ended up on Image Comics, and then he's done some other things after that.
Well, now he's in the independent comic scene, I guess, as well. They're graphic novel in this case, I guess. So anyway, the crowdfund campaign on Zoop features two covers, one by Chaykin, the other by Dave Johnson. The hardcover by itself is listed at $40, but there are other options, including signed copies as well as bundles that one can back. The campaign also features a number of add-ons, including prints and commissions by Chaykin. There is also the option to be drawn into the background of a series and even get killed during a fight. Oh, isn't that such an honor, right? Isn't that such an honor? Tell me, would you guys want to be drawn into a comic only to be killed in it?
Yes.
No.
As long as there is a plug to my comic book somewhere within that scene.
As long as what?
As long as there was a plug to whatever comic book I was doing in that very same scene.
All right. The campaign has currently raised $41,112 from 473 backers. It has a goal of 60,000. Now, granted, I read this the other day on Wednesday, so by now they might be a lot closer to that 60,000. And yeah. Do you plan on backing Chaykin's Fargo Hell on Wheels adaptation? So, anyways, So, what did you guys think of all that?
Cool.
Oh, it sounds interesting.
Yeah.
I like westerns.
Yeah. I like trains. Sorry. I find it interesting that the guy's name is Fargo, though. Because when I hear Fargo, I think of that movie.
I've never seen the movie.
North Dakota.
I don't know why you referring to it.
Especially since one of the characters in that movie almost looked like my Uncle Jim when he was alive.
I think of the city of the same name in North Dakota.
Don't you know?
Let's see.
But I like westerns. I like trains. I like rough and tough characters like that. Actually, completely unrelated to the story, but happens to share a name. One of my favorite Westerns is AMC's Hell on Wheels. So if I get anything close to that level of like character interaction and action, I'd probably be interested in reading it.
I have yet to see that.
Yeah, so anyway, I know Rick's not here, but this past Friday, Rick and I, of course, were reading comics that went on sale in December 1939 from Fox Feature Syndicate. We read from Wonder World Comics Volume 1, Number 10, Mystery Men Comics Volume 1, Number 7, and Fantastic Comics Volume 1, Number 3. We read Samson, Green Mask, Yarko the Great, and Patio Day. Those are some pretty good stories. And Rick, as always, whenever we do a Yarko story, does the Yarko's. He's got a very interesting take on Yarko's voice. I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch that. Or let's see, Tim, were you there on Friday at all? Did you drop in at all or no?
I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, I have you this Friday as my co-host when we introduced everybody to Hillman Comics, going over Miracle and Rocket Comics, each Volume 1, Number 1. Haven't figured out the exact features we'll go over yet, but looking at that.
I look forward to it, to the day when the comic books where they're fighting Nazis and not monsters.
Yeah. Well, I think by the name, Rocket Comics is liable to be a sci-fi anthology where it has a lot of like space stuff in it, is what I'd guess.
Space Nazis.
Yeah. Miracle Comics are a little bit more mixed. But, yeah. And then, of course, I still have you tentatively for the 10th, right? Right?
Yeah, as far as I know.
Yeah. So, but when we do that, we'll probably be looking over stuff. We'll be finished with November or December of 1939 on the 17th. That I have Rick also tentatively for that. He kind of took that, but I also know that I'm hoping that you guys will still be able to stick with those. But I think if I can, I'll switch you guys up. If you can't do the 10th for some reason, I'll try that. But we'll be done with 1939 by the 17th, and I'll take a week off for Thanksgiving, and then I'll take off, the Thanksgiving week, Thursday and Friday, and then we'll start January 1940 coverage in December 1st. I have RJ, and then obviously don't have anybody else, and you guys might want to also start looking at my community tab, because I'm going to be posting more there, particularly in like the stuff we're going to be covering over the next weeks. And as Rick suggested, I'll probably like put who's like co-hosting which week and stuff in there as well. So
1940s.
Yeah, well, getting closer to the we're getting closer to the to the war stuff, more of the war stuff coming. So
it's going to get really interesting when you hit the 1950s.
Yeah.
EC Comics.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll get there eventually. Yeah. But well, I mean, if you remember too, Frederick Worthing did a lot of his work in the 40s, particularly in 48, with all that, the juvenile delinquency stuff. All right. So anything else come to mind of interest you guys want to talk about, or?
No, not really.
All right. I guess we can wrap up a bit early here, because I usually do try to make these go 2 hours. It just doesn't seem like we have as much more to talk about. So I think we'll start wrapping up here.
Yeah, you probably would have hit that that normal time easier if Rick was here to talk about his experience last time, but that's kind of like a missing slot.
Right.
I do believe Rick is probably packing stuff up.
Yeah.
I would assume so.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is that I got a message from him earlier, even before I sent out the invitations and all that. I got a message from him that he said he wasn't going to be able to make it. So I understood. But,
Yeah.
again, if we get more people into the chat here, we could make these conversations longer because we have more people contributing to the conversation. So, like last week, I liked how RJ popped in when we were talking about the stuff going on with Eric July there, because I think that was quite a learning experience for all of us in that regard. And that was pretty cool. So anyways, today is, of course, Sunday, October 22nd, 2023. So let's take a look back at this weekend in Nietzsche history. History! Just remind myself of a few things here. All right, so first off, we're going to head back 40 years ago yesterday. As on yesterday's date, 40 years ago, let's get right there. Yeah. 40 years ago, the Nippon Sunrise's Ginga Yoru Yafam premiered on Japanese television, most notably on what was at the time known as JNN, now known today as MBS TV, I guess. On this date, 40 years ago today, Nippon Sunrise's Ginga Yoru Yafam, which according to this translates, or also known as Galactic Drifter Yafam or Round Burning Yafam. I guess it was a mecha anime that premiered on Japanese television, loosely based on Jules Verne's Do-on Day Vacances, or 2 Years Vacation. So it ran for like 46 episodes. So 40 years ago, yesterday, year of Sunrise, Nippon Sunrise's Ginga Hyoru Japan. You ever heard of that one, Metal?
I'm afraid not.
Probably before your time, and I don't think.
I've seen a lot of stuff that
probably didn't get
before my
dubbed
time.
either. So, anyways, moving on to the next piece of Nietzsche history from yesterday, going back 10 years ago yesterday. 10 years ago yesterday from
Fucking hell.
From the FedEx Forum in Memphis, Tennessee, which ironically AEW was at last night, for their Collision and Battle of the Belts show. So funny how I found this today. But on yesterday's date, 10 years ago, WWE held its Monday Night Raw Super Show there. I think this is the go home Raw before the No Mercy pay-per-view, as it were. The night saw Shield of Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins going up against the Usos in a number one contender match for the WWE tag titles, only to end in a no contest. You also had the Real Americans of Antonio Cesaro and Jack Swagger beating Sons of Funk, Brodus Clay, and Tensai, and basically they had quite a full card heading into as the go home show before the No Mercy pay per view. So that happened 10 years ago from the FedEx Forum in Memphis. So now on to today's date. Otherwise, 19. 1973. Okay. All right. So on this date, 50 years ago today, on this date, 50 years ago today, the animated adaptation of Kidnapped, which was a book by Robert Louis Stevens, and the animated adaptation of Kidnapped from Robert Louis Stevens, premiered on CBS on this date 50 years ago today. On this date 50 years ago today, the as part of their famous classic Tales series, adaptation of Kidnapped from Robert Louis Stevens from as produced by Air Programs International, which was based in Australia, and was animated by Ruby Spears Enterprises. On this date, in again 50 years ago today, the animated adaptation of Kidnapped premiered on CBS on this date 50 years ago today. So with that, finally, on this date in 2003, 20 years ago today, the 620th issue of Batman, Volume 1 of Batman. This is the same Batman that started all the way back 1940, mind you. So Batman Volume 1, issue 620 went on sale on this date 20 years ago today. Of course, ran for $715. Mind you, it sold at that point for $2.25, 40 pages. It was part 1 of the Broken City story written by Brian Azzarello, with art by Eduardo Risso, who we saw earlier. Eduardo Risso was the guy who was helping out with one of the guys helping out with the Chaykin graphic novel. Clem Robbins doing the lettering, and Patricia Mulvihill did the coloring. So on this date, 20 years ago today, the 620th issue of Batman, the first volume of Batman, went on sale from DC Comics. So there we go, everybody. I hope everybody had
if that was in my pool, I would demand my money back. I mean, look, like 20% of the cover's missing.
20% of 20% of the covers, man. Oh, yeah, because of that white.
Yeah, there's no detailers. It's just this white blob looking like a woman's silhouette in the cover. It's like, I want my money back.
Well, there may be something more to that particular cover, but let's see. Cover art. Well, you can blame Dave Johnson. Oh, Dave Johnson, another name we just saw. You can go blame Dave Johnson for that one.
I'm gonna.
Anyways, did you guys have fun tonight? You guys get a good conversation? You guys like the conversation tonight?
Yeah, it was interesting.
All right. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I guess we will see everybody back here. Okay. Well, first off, actually, before we do that, did you guys each? Well, start with Tim. Did you guys want to do an outro?
3 days left on Melvin 3. Back while you can.
All right, and Metal.
The purchase Realms and Relics, like I said, it's like it's under $4 before shipping. It's not that expensive, but if you want shipping to feel even more worth it, there's plenty of other X Dynamis Chaos stuff on Indie Planet too. You could bundle it up, give me more money. I'm not going to complain.
All right. So with that, I thank everybody for being here. Now, of course, tomorrow night we'll be, back to doing our niche newscast. I hope everybody will come back to get more on that. Also, this Friday, Tim will be joining me as we will be, as we talked about just a little while ago. We'll be looking at comics that went on sale from Hillman Comics. We'll be introducing everybody to who Hillman Comics were and some of the titles they had and all that, and then getting into reading some of their works. So with that, I thank everyone for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow.
Bye.